2029 Meat without animals. When food became an engineering problem, the prediction, what we thought. As concerns about population growth, environmental strain, and animal welfare mounted in the 1990s, a striking idea entered futurist thinking: meat would be grown without animals. Instead of raising and slaughtering livestock, muscle tissue would be cultivated directly, clean, efficient, and scalable. Protein production would move from farms to labs. The environmental footprint of food would shrink. Ethical debates over animal suffering would fade. In this future, meat would remain familiar, but its origin would fundamentally change. Standing in 1999, this sounded bold but oddly practical. If cells could be cultured and tissues grown, why not food? Why this prediction made sense in 1999? The logic was driven by pressure points that were already visible. In the late 1990s, global meat consumption was rising rapidly. Industrial farming faced ethical scrutiny. Environmental concerns were growing. Biotechnology was advancing steadily. Livestock farming looked increasingly inefficient. It required vast land, water, and feed inputs to produce relatively small amounts of protein. From a systems perspective, it seemed ripe for disruption. This belief fit neatly with millennium-era optimism that engineering could optimize nature. Just as factories have replaced artisanal production in other industries, food could be rationalized, standardized, and scaled. For younger readers today, it's important to stress how counterintuitive this still felt in 1999. Food was cultural, emotional, and deeply traditional. The idea that meat could be manufactured challenged identity as much as appetite. And yet the pressure for alternatives was unmistakable. Who said it and where? The concept gained broader visibility through futurist writing in publications like Wired, particularly in the 1997 essay, The Long Boom, which explored how technology might reshape everything from energy to food systems. In this context, lab-grown meat wasn't presented as novelty, it was framed as a rational response to scale. If humanity was entering a period of prolonged growth, traditional agriculture would struggle to keep up sustainably. The idea circulated less as a promise of gourmet innovation and more as a structural necessity. What actually happened 2000 to 2025? Lab-grown and synthetic meat arrived. Slowly, then visibly. The early 2000s saw research and prototypes. Progress was expensive and experimental. The concept existed mostly in labs and headlines. By the 2010s, cultured meat prototypes were demonstrated. Plant-based alternatives improved dramatically. Investment poured into alternative proteins. By the early 2020s, the shift became tangible. Lab-grown meat received regulatory approval in some regions. Plant-based meats achieved mainstream adoption. Supermarkets and restaurants began offering alternatives that tasted close enough to change behavior. By 2025, synthetic and cultured meats existed commercially. Alternative proteins were widely available. Meat no longer required animals by definition. Traditional livestock farming did not disappear, but it lost its monopoly. The prediction that meat could be produced without animals was no longer theoretical. It was real. Verdict: status. Realized, meat can now be produced without animals. While not yet dominant, lab-grown and synthetic meats exist commercially and are part of the global food system. The core prediction that meat production would decouple from livestock has been fulfilled. Why it played out this way? This prediction succeeded because it addressed multiple pressures at once. Environmental sustainability, animal welfare, food security, and scalability all pointed in the same direction. Once the technology crossed a threshold of taste, cost, and trust, adoption followed. What was underestimated in 1999 was timeline and culture. Food is emotional. Acceptance required familiarity, branding, and generational change. Engineering alone wasn't enough. But once alternatives became normal enough, the shift accelerated. What this prediction teaches us about the future. This case highlights a key forecasting lesson. Technological change spreads fastest when it solves ethical and practical problems simultaneously. Lab-grown meat wasn't adopted because it was futuristic. It was adopted because it aligned with evolving values and constraints. In 1999, it felt radical to imagine meat without animals. In 2026, it feels like one option among many. The future didn't replace food traditions, it expanded them. One sentence takeaway. We didn't stop eating meat, we just stopped needing animals to make it.